Welcome back to the channel. Today we are super excited to be working on this 1985 Porsche 911 SC. This vehicle was dropped off to us a couple days ago by the client. Their main focus was to restore the paintwork and make sure this vehicle was brought back to the best condition possible. So as you can see, the current state of the vehicle, there's a lot of defects both in the paintwork and also other areas of the car. We really want to focus on enhancing these areas all throughout, including even the rubber and plastic trim. There's a lot of improvement to be made. We're gonna get this ready for prepped for paint correction. Right now it's gonna get a full wash, decontamination service. We're gonna follow it up with our two-step paint correction. So one thing that we're doing here is we're going to measure the paintwork before we correct it. This is really crucial on older vehicles because this gives us a base reading of how far we can take the paint correction. For example, if you were to just go into this job blindly without measuring the paint, we take a high risk of burning through, and obviously we do not want to do that. So as you guys can see, we have some of it already disassembled. The main reason for this is these headlight lenses. They were really beat up from previous damage, so we sent them off to the body shop. Right now it's already paint corrected, and we've already done a lot of the restoration part of the services. We still have a few things left over, but right now it's focusing on paint protection film. So we did remove these for a dual purpose. Like I said, one, to get repainted. The other is when we put PPF on here, we're not gonna have seams that go around there. We're gonna be able to tuck nice and cleanly into those lines. So one thing I wanna talk about is the reason that we would put paint protection film on a vehicle this old. Most people that are buying vehicles that are of this age, they're gonna look for things like repaints and other areas that the car may had to have been fixed in the past. What PPF is gonna do is take the current state of the vehicle and it's gonna encapsulate the condition of it. So right now it is in outstanding condition after our services. We're gonna protect it. The client can drive it and not have to worry about Well, we are super excited. We have finally completed the 1983 Porsche. At this point, we would consider it a restoration. We spent a little over 80 man-hours detailing, restoring, fixing, protecting, polishing, and everything in between. When this project first came to us, we really focused about just enhancing the paintwork, put some focus on restoration in small areas, and also the main priority was protecting it. As we got into the detail and the job, we noticed there was a lot of things that we could enhance as we went through the detailing. Just little things here and there that started to really add up. We voiced those concerns to the client, and they were all hands on deck, willing to let us essentially take over and really go take this to another level. So our first approach on this was to look at the paint correction and see how far do we need to take this. We wanted to make sure it wasn't going to be taken too far and potentially compromise the clear coat. With that being said, we also wanted to make sure we were taking it far enough to get the best result that we could. So as we followed through with our paint correction, we did one step of compounding that took out the heavier stuff. We also did a step of polishing that made sure that the paint looked super glossy. One thing that we did add into this was wet sanding. So what that's going to do is it's going to level out the clear coat and make sure that if there is a deeper scratch or scratches in an area, instead of just really drilling down with the compounding step, this is in a way, a safer approach, and it also finishes out much better because if there is like orange peel, what I mean by that is if there's any waviness in the paint, it's going to flatten that out, so it's going to make the paint look a lot more rich and kind of give it a depth to the finish of the paint. One part that's really important to us during this process was the presentation of the vehicle at delivery. We want to make sure if we're able to do something now to make our presentation just 1% better, it was going to be worth it to us. And the first thing that we did was seeing do we need to disassemble from the car to either wrap an edge or further improve the paint correction process. A few of the things that we removed were the trim around the headlights, the mirror stocks, the mirror caps, and the door handles. A few reasons why we would remove these things are, one, we can wrap edges when it comes to applying paint protection film, and then two, we had to get them repainted anyways, so that was going to be a necessary process, so we didn't have to blend panels. We can just pull the piece off, get it painted, and then put film on, put it back on the vehicle, and it'll be an outstanding result. After we had the vehicle disassembled and in pieces, this allowed us to put the film on with a much easier process, and honestly, it's gonna get us a much better result. So like I said, mirror stocks are off. We don't have any seams around the stocks. The headlight housing, we're able to tuck in there even on the fenders. And then we had the badge removed. The front bumper piece as well, we could tuck in all those areas. We were really happy that we were allowed to do this because it gave us kind of free reign in this area of applying the film. It, like I said, made our job a lot easier, and at the same time we were able to get a lot better result in doing so. For the interior, there was a lot of areas that we could have a decent amount of improvement on. There were some areas that we had to be a little bit more gentle. with it being the age that it is, we had to make sure we found that middle ground. So to start, we did a quick vacuum, made sure that the primary and also smaller debris was removed. And on top of that, we followed up with a very, very gentle steam clean. We noticed as we were steaming the vehicle, we were smelling a lot of older, kind of musty smells, which is a good sign. It says that it is removing them. And after we followed up with that, we did a leather reek treatment onto the seats. And what this does is it kind of takes it to the next level of cleaning. So with the leather, it is perforated, it is breathable. And on this, what this is going to allow it to do is pull out and extract the dirt that's going to be in the seat. It's going to lift that dirt out, we'll clean it away. We actually do another treatment on top of that that's going to condition the leather. And this is a process that typically takes, I'd say, about 24 to 36 hours. We actually let it dwell into the seats to really soak up that conditioner. We followed up with it with the removal of the excess, and then you get the result that you can see. So it's a really cool process. It makes the seats look a lot better. It makes them also a lot softer. So if this is something that you guys are interested in, let us know. This is a process that we don't talk about very often, but when we do get to do it, the clients are always really happy with it. If you guys have been following us on social media or just have had work done by us in the past, you know the really important things to us are the small details. At this part of the project, this is where we really got really excited because we had all these parts disassembled. We noticed some things were partly damaged. We noticed some things just needed a good cleaning and condition. And so there were a few areas that we really got to just really improve on the job. We noticed there had been previous poor assembly on this car. And so we were able to document that, inform the client, which they really appreciated, and reassemble it in the proper way. There are a lot of little things that made a big impact on the interior. For one, you'll notice in the steering wheel, these are really commonly, they have a steering wheel shake, so it starts to kind of have a lot of play in it. We put a new bushing in on the inside. On these handle pulls down here, we had both of the red pieces replaced. You can see they look nice and bright and red. Beforehand, they were super oxidized and faded just over wear over time. And then just an overall finish of the interior. You notice the carpets, they kind of look much more plush now. The Porsche logos are really cleaned. And so, like I said, there is a fine line of us wanting to replace things and also us wanting to keep this as OEM as possible and not just replace things because it has a little bit of wear. To give you guys a good idea of just how much work we put into this, I want to touch on a few things just around the vehicle. There were certain trim pieces that we were able to do a complete re-dyeing of it. And there were some things like the door handles and the mirror stock grommets that were just so beat up and worn out over time that it was best to just replace them. You noticed a big change in the rear. The badge was replaced. Previously it was silver. This had actually been because it was so oxidized and discolored over time. On this specific Porsche, they came with two different options from the factory. Once we pulled the badge, we noticed it actually was supposed to be black, so that was replaced. This vent cover right here was completely re-dyed. So instead of it being faded and having to replace it, we were able to keep the original piece and completely re-dye it to look like factory again. Another thing that was kind of an eyesore were these, what they call bumperettes. So these big rubber blocks on the rear, kind of unsightly at the time of drop off. So we noticed they were really discolored. Once again, the trim in the rear, we were able to refinish them and dye them again so they can look like this for many, many years to come. Another thing that I want to talk about that honestly made me really happy to see was the glass. When it was brought to us, it had a lot of water spotting, just looked really dingy, had not been cleaned in a while. We polished the glass, and this, as you can see, is going to make it much more optically clear. So a few things on the front end of the car. On the hood specifically, you'll notice a new Porsche crest. We replaced this. This is a genuine Porsche part. Obviously kept the old one so the owner can keep it. Did this for two reasons. One, the old one was just super dated. The red was faded out. And When we put film on this, we did not want to have to cut around a badge or anything like that. This is really standard for us to remove, as we want a seamless install, just like I mentioned on the doors. The headlights were switched out with brand new LED lights, high output lights, so it's going to give them better visibility. Also, the lenses were replaced, so it kind of brings up the overall finish of the front end. It doesn't look as dingy, better visibility, higher quality light, and just looks better overall. On the front bar here, you'll notice this rubber piece across was restored. This is where we started to notice some issues from previous assembly from somebody else. Was the front bumper actually had been repainted, and they used clips that were in no way meant for that bumper to be held onto. So we ordered the correct Porsche part, had all 8 clips replaced, reassembled with genuine Porsche OEM screws on the side as well. So as we come around to the side, you'll notice the tires look nice and clean, dressed, and also the wheels have a really good finish to them. We did a really thorough deep clean on them. And then on top of that, we did replace the tires. They had the original ones from factory on this car, surprisingly enough. And obviously that was not gonna work if this vehicle wanted to be driven. One last thing that I wanted to note was tail lights, fog lights, and those two primarily. We noticed that there was water getting into those, so we actually replaced the housings on the tail lights and the seals on the fog lights up front to make sure that that wasn't going to occur anymore. Once again, we did replace with the correct OEM parts, and then there were some old bulbs that needed to be replaced, so those were updated as well. As we were nearing the end of the project, we just had a few more things to do. One of the last things was put our Ceramic Pro silver package onto the vehicle. So we put 2 thick layers of ceramic coating on there, 1 layer of 9H, 1 layer of light on all of the painted surfaces, all of the rubber and plastic grommets and seals, the exhaust pipes, the glass, and the wheel faces. So everything was ceramic coated. It kind of made everything pop a little bit more, both on the film side and on the areas that did not have paint protection film. Thank you again, guys, for checking out our video. We had a blast doing this restoration detail. If you guys want to learn more about our services, you can reach us directly at info@pristineindy.com. And please check out our next video where we do a complete chrome delete on a 2016 Denali Yukon. Thank you.